good. Do I look as good as you?
All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and I am joined by the great, the magnificent, and also one of my good friends, Michael Moeller, Dr. Mo. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, man. It's another sunny day in Southern California, so I cannot complain at all. Things are good. Life is good. God is great. Super glad to be here.
Well, brother, before we even get into the topic at hand today, which is one of your expertises, talking about testosterone, what's life like right now in California? Is things kind of getting back to normal like they are in the rest of the United States? What's it like there?
I think maybe it's mid-June that we can do the no masks if you've gotten the Vaseline. But yeah, right now we're still kind of dealing with a lot of people are opening up, right? A lot of it has to do with the flavor in the air of the fear that's been set in for the last, oh, Jesus, man. It's like 16 months now, 17 months. As far as my clinic goes, I see a lot of elderly patients who would be in that immunocompromised area, and they're starting to come out. So I'm faithful. I'm hopeful. I think definitely the sun and the warm weather is helping. And as you can, I got the Fauci thing, right, is being blown.
Oh, dude, that's what I was going to ask you about his emails. I'm sure you've already looked into some of those.
I made a YouTube video about the gains of function research in the NIH last year, April. And people are like, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. I'm like, no, the United States, we banned gain of function research. That was like a thing under Obama in like 2017, at least 2017, it was banned. And then if you just follow a paper trail, it's like, whoa, why is the NIH funding Wuhan? Like, dude, it was just, we probably talked about that. Right. I think this time last year, all the things were lining up. So, man, I tell you what, and this just goes down the angle of pharmaceuticals and who's controlling the world and what's really going on here.
Dude, I know. I mean, the emails, at least the ones that I saw, he literally had an email explaining how the virus was created, where it came from, all this different stuff. And then the person who sent it to him also came out publicly to disregard the Wuhan lab theory. And so you see, this was an orchestrated cover-up, that we have internal emails from people who then negated what they were emailing each other. It's just...
Yeah. One of my main arguments when this was all going on, I'm like, we have CIA, we have the FBI. You're telling me that there is, like, this is just when everything kind of broke. I'm like, how do we not know what's going on in China right now when all of a sudden they started saying, oh, we have no more cases? Remember that? Like, all the cases, like,
and there's no vaccines in China.
Yeah. So it just goes to show what's really kind of going on. And I don't know, that's, from a theological perspective, living in the upside down and in a broken world, that's part of the plan, but we stay true to the light, and that's all that matters. So.
That's right. That is right. So regarding trying to stay true to the light, it is essential that men are men. And yes. So I wanted you to talk again. One of your expertises is testosterone and how men can boost their testosterone, raise their testosterone levels. And before we even get into that, because guys, we have a step-by-step PowerPoint that we're going to go over at the end of this stream, so stay with us so you can follow that PowerPoint. But can you just talk to us again, like maybe what is your experience? I know you've introduced yourself. Most people watching this already know who you are because you've been on here more than any other guest. But what, like, testosterone? What has your research as a doctor been with that? And then talk about its function for men and its necessity and central importance.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably like you remember being in health ed as a freshman and just learning about testosterone. You're like, oh, that's what makes men, right? You grow, you get your pit hair, your balls drop, your muscles get big, start releasing pheromones, you become attractive, your voice deepens, and that's really what transitions you into manhood. And so I was always pretty interested into that. And then like yourself, I was in sports and I got into bodybuilding. And then that's when I realized the food guide pyramid was whack. And I started looking at, monocultural farming, Monsanto, the FDA and all that. And, I decided to go into, medicine. I'm a naturopathic doctor. And so I really focus on holistic and natural ways of being. And TRT was actually one of the first therapies that I saw in clinic. So, what sucks, there are good and bad things about natural and holistic stuff. Most people are like, there's snake oil. It's true. I'll be first in line to say there's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of supplements that don't work. And I'm very much a matter of fact kind of person. I came from the bodybuilding world. So caffeine, I saw the anabolic steroid usage. I seen what really gets results. Ephedra gets results. Like you want to lose weight, you want to have energy, same thing, Adderall, like testosterone, those things get results. And there's healthy ways in my opinion, of really doing all of them. You just got to make sure you're not dumb about it, because the FDA approves drugs that have miles and miles of side effects and long-term bad things. And then on the opposite ends, we ban a herb. So, but kind of back to, testosterone, I saw it in clinic really turn this one dude's life around. He was like probably an early 50s, rundown dude, overweight, no libido. Usually one of the things that guys come to me for was for ED, because if your testosterone is low, you're gonna have a really hard time getting an erection. And that's why your morning erections are one of your best signs for not only how optimal is your testosterone, but also blood, right? Your blood vessels get all gunked and clogged, and they also need to be able to open up and vasodilate. And that's what happens to your penis hopefully every morning, or about every morning, you get blood that flows into your penis and gets you an erection in the morning. Now, as we age, it's pretty normal that testosterone slowly declines. And that's why when you see like a man and a woman, when they're 70 or 80, it's harder to tell them their gender apart. They look more and more the same, right? Man, young, Adam's apple, shoulders, V, this nice V shape. Right. And then women have this bell curve, right? And that's because of their estrogen to testosterone to progesterone ratio. And then as men age, their testosterone estrogen ratio, they all switch and they get closer and closer and closer. So I saw this testosterone replacement really change this guy, and why I'm not here to shill testosterone replacement. There's a time and place for everything. And me personally, we didn't really talk about this. I'm seeing less and less patients. I'm moving more into online stuff. So I'm not here to shill people to come and see me as a doctor. But I do think it's super important that we let guys know that you are at a major decrease to where your grandpa was. Average testosterone levels are down 200 to 300 milligrams per deciliter, which is anywhere from 30 to 40% of 30 to 40 years ago. So what does that mean? Like, why do you think we have less men? It's because you have less testosterone. And I think too, you have a background, which we talked about in Fractal Universe, DMT, the spirit molecule, all the serotonin, melatonin, testosterone, all these things tell us our mood. They help regulate our emotion. Your hypothalamus literally releases hormones and tells you how to act in a situation, right? And if you're feeling good, things are going well, you're going to release dopamine and serotonin, you can have better posture, you're more likely, in sports, you get a rush of epinephrine, you sprain your ankle, you can get through it. And testosterone is very much that hormone. Testosterone is the alpha male hormone. Right. Now, like anything, there's a balance of that. But just kind of back to your first question, I saw it. It was one of those things where I'm like, wow, it does something. Like, you take caffeine, you get energy. Now, whether it's good or bad or how much you do, another conversation. Right. Same thing with testosterone. I just saw testosterone turn this guy's life around. And then that's when I kind of started diving into, whoa, what is this? I only heard this with steroids and it's bad. And I was a natural bodybuilder. So I just stayed away from all anabolic steroids. I learned about them a lot, but I'm like,
well, that's one of the things I want to mention to you, because today, the point of today's stream is really about natural ways to boost natural testosterone levels, which, as we've talked about, and you're going to talk about how, again, depending on your own health background, what you've been exposed to, may be more difficult than for somebody else. But the endocrine and wrecking the endocrine system by these guys getting on SARMs and Tren and all these different types of steroids, I mean, it's a real detriment. And that's what, for me, I've been leery about any type of sort of replacement therapy, at least not until I get older, because I want to be able to produce as much naturally as I can. So so before then opening up the conversation, because I know guys are going to be aware of TRT or hormone replacement therapy as well, talk to trying to boost natural levels, and then once you go these more, I don't want to even call it artificial, but these other routes,
pharmaceutical,
artificial. Yeah. So, how again that you're almost going to have to be on that for the rest of your life to maintain those high T levels, because you're dramatically altering your endocrine system.
Yeah, in which we see it with fertility and the godforsaken birth control, which again, the female birth control hormones I think that's one of the worst mistakes we ever made personally.
Oh,
Just as
agreed.
Dude, and it's funny, and some people say it's great, and then you talk to every woman that's ever been on it, and they're like, "Oh, I was crazy." That's exactly what I was trying to get at, is that we're messing with these hormone levels. It affects your personality,
right?
There's really, why do they give you antipsychotics that mess with your hormone? What kind of neurotransmitters do you releasing? Because it affects. Really, if like just take some melatonin, it's going to put you to sleep. Take some caffeine, it wakes you up. Like you're way more motivated when you're on caffeine. Like that's just how it works. So, but back to your question about. And because this is something I got really super interested in as well. And myself, to be honest, I'm selfishly got into medicine because I got sick with something called interstitial cystitis. I healed myself. And then I decided, okay, I can't depend on the medical care system to help me out. I want to figure these things out on my own. And TRT was an area, again, I was always very skeptical because you learn about that. And most people know once you start taking testosterone, it shuts off your own the stuff that you make.
Right.
You have an HPA axis. Your hypothalamus produces a signal, LH, goes down to your testes. Your testes produce testosterone, and it's a feedback loop.
Right.
And then your hypothalamus measures that. So anytime you start replacing it, you're going to have too much, and then you're going to shut the signal off.
Right.
So the thing is, though, now the game is different. This isn't 50 to 100 years ago. We've had so many endocrine disrupting chemicals that have been introduced to us now. I don't even know where to start, right? Like we can talk about plastics. We can talk about, a funny thing to notice, right, is that you were all inside of your grandmother, right? From you were in your mom's, all the eggs that your mother had were in her since the time of she was a baby inside her mom.
Right.
So we were all inside of our grandmas. So these are things we don't really talk about or think about. And this is one of the big skepticisms with GMO. My personal opinion, I don't think we have a ton of evidence to show that genetically modifying things is 100% bad. I personally think it's bad. I don't think we have I can't sit here and say we have the clinical evidence right now to say that it's proven. We do have that the insecticides and the pesticides and the herbicides and all of that are clinically proven to do bad things. And that's one of my points, is that glyphosate, Roundup Ready, which is in pretty much every crop out there, mostly corn, it has been shown to be Leydig cell toxic. Well, that's the cells inside of your testes that produce testosterone. So we'll have all of us since the time we were, this could be our grandmas, right? Because I should be more well-versed on Roundup Ready, but it's been around 20, 30 years. It may be older than that. So we've been drowning in this, right? It's sprayed on all the food. And again, I've been in arguments. I come from the Midwest. I come from a small town, from a farm. I've had these discussions whether or not how that affects our health. Some people say not so much. I think the evidence is very clear at this point that it's not doing us any good.
Right.
So when you ask me, hey, can we boost testosterone normally? I'm like, I don't know. Number one, head injuries too. Like a lot of us played football, and I don't know. That's a very debated one for me. I don't know how much that there's a Dr. Mark Gordon. He's been on Joe Rogan several times. He's talked a lot about head injuries, and he does a lot with PTSD and soldiers that have head injuries, and they've been shown to decrease testosterone. So major head injuries will decrease your testosterone because it messes with your pituitary gland, your hypothalamus, messes up the signaling. So I don't know about you. I assume 3 to 5 concussions in football.
Yeah. Shoot Bantam League in high school football.
Yeah. Or dude, and when I was in 8th grade, we played backyard.
Yeah.
No pads, bro.
Right.
We played rough basketball,
Right.
So, I mean, it's a super loaded question. And this is where I've tried to stay away from pharmaceutical interventions, right? Because I'm a naturopathic doctor. I don't want to go that route.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I am about getting results, right? Like if you have an infection, if you have a staph infection, sorry, I'm not going to tell you to put coconut oil on it. You probably need an antibiotic. Yeah. But you have those, and the same goes for testosterone. Like if you come to me and you're 25 and you can't get an erection, we might do some Viagra or some Cialis.
Right, and you've seen this, right? Because the next question I want to get into is describe the actual epidemic we are in right now, facing the low testosterone levels in young men. Young men, we don't even have to get into after you're 30 and natural rates we don't even have to get into that. People in their prime. Talk about the epidemic that we're in. Again, with patients you've seen, 25 years old, cannot get an erection.
Yeah. So when I graduated in 2017. And at the time, the LabCorp reference range for testosterone was 350 milligrams per deciliter up to 1200. And that year was the year they switched the top end of 1200 down to 900, and they dropped the bottom end from 350 down to 260. Mm-hmm. That's like a 20, 30% decrease on both ends. And why is that? Because levels just keep dropping. I can reference some studies where, mean average testosterone 20, 30 years ago was in the 500 to 700 range. Most of the studies coming out now show mean average testosterone 350 to 400. So that was like, 10 years ago, that's the bottom. But now we've moved, and you see this with most cholesterol. They move the marker. Blood pressure, they move the marker. And in my opinion, often there are good people out there, and money and greed often drives a lot of care. I've said this about doctors. What sucks about being a doctor is most doctors don't treat patients. They're just trying to keep their license, really, at the end of the day. So when you come in and something's going, I muted myself. When you come in, I'm more worried about keeping my license than getting you better, right? So if you come in and you have XYZ going on, I'm more likely to okay, the medical board told me to do this, so I'm going to do this for you. Right. So people come in and they complain. And just for instance, I have plenty of guys that come to me, they're 40, 50 years old and they have ED and they've went to their doctor and their doctor did nothing. Wouldn't even give them Viagra or Cialis. They're like, you're fine, you're young, brush it off. And these kids are torn up. A lot of these people, it takes 2 to 3 years before you go to your doctor and ask about this for most guys.
Right. Well, so shoot, if you're in your 20s, I mean, so talk about some of the lifestyle, because again, agreeing that we're living in a time where we are inundated with chemicals, estrogen in our food and our water, like you said, plastics, potentially GMOs, all this stuff. We're, for the first time in human history, we're being exposed to. We're seeing dramatic lowering in fertility rates, sperm count, testosterone. What are some of the lifestyle contributions that young people are doing to lower their testosterone? The sedentary lifestyle, playing video games. What are some of the lifestyle choices that, again, anybody watching needs to be aware? Okay, maybe I shouldn't engage in these activities as much as I do because they are maybe having a real effect on my hormone system.
Yeah, and that's a great point about a lot of why we see these levels dropping are probably because of those lifestyle choices, right? I grew up on 44-ounce big gulps for 69 cents. And this is the reality of the conversation when I'm like, wow, I drank 100 grams of sugar from the time I was, I don't know, 10, 8, I don't,
right. My parents gave me Cokes when I was a kid.
Yeah, it wasn't that, and up until at least 20, until I got in bodybuilding at 21. So those years are super important, right? When you're 10 to 21, and if I don't take care of my body and I'm drinking lots of glyphosate, or I wouldn't be drinking glyphosate, but just not eating, eating all of these endocrine disruptors that are everywhere, whether it's in Tombstone pizzas or Doritos, whatever it is, it's all garbage. And on the other end, it's not giving my body what it needs to create the cells, right? Everything in your body is made up of what you consume, everything. Right. So if something goes in you, it's going to be transformed into something of you. So it's, your body's a temple.
Right.
And for instance, just high amounts of sugar, right? Let's just say, I think there's studies 40 grams of, maybe it's upwards of 70 grams of sugar, but you can have an instant 20 to 30% drop in your total testosterone. And that's due to your body maintains a balance, right? Testosterone is a hormone of things are good. It's time to build. I'm a man. Let's go out and conquer.
Right.
Cortisol, fight or flight hormone. Those hormones pretty much stay away from each other. You're like, oh, cortisol's like this. Oh man, life sucks. I don't like this. And we're flooded with cortisol. I don't think people understand, going to a job you don't like, sitting in class you don't like, being in a relationship you don't want to be in. And even little things like sitting in traffic. I don't know if you've ever really thought about the sympathetic response that you're having. At any moment you could die, right? When you're going 70 miles out, just one of this, done, right? And I remember sitting at a stoplight one time on a freeway that the people were going by going by 55. And I'm like, dude, I'm at all times 1 foot away from just dying pretty much. And your whether or not you admit it, your nervous system is in that fight or flight response. It's not in a testosterone. It's in what's going to happen here, whether or not you even know it. And that's happening at all times. So stress is going to be the number one killer. But sugar, what happens is you have a high amount of sugar, your sugar goes up, your body releases insulin. Insulin tells your body to store that sugar. It allows it to store it. And then your sugar usually drops. And that's if you're having, you get an overabundance amount of sugar, you'll get an overabundance amount of insulin. And then your blood sugar drops, and then your body has to release cortisol to get it back up. That's blood sugar crashing. And you do that for 10 years, you get type 2 diabetes. Right? Testosterone actually increases insulin sensitivity. One of the things is your insulin becomes less sensitive. It makes your body has a harder time being able to store its sugar due to all that fluctuation, right? It's like insulin's the key. And if you're like having to use that key and you're pounding it all day, every day, then it's going to get worn down. Whereas you're exercising, you're kind of keeping that key clean. Testosterone does that. Exercise does that. Fasting does that. So eating all the time, high amounts of sugar, stress is going to be the major, not sleeping. There's some studies showing that shift working, right? Like if it's under 6 hours of sleep for a week, your testosterone drops by about 20 to 30%.
Wow. That's one of the things I've been trying to get much better on. Is I go to bed too late. I may still get my 6 or 7 or 8 hours, but I don't like that it's happening at 11:30, 12:30, 1 in the morning. And really now with my workout schedule, I can't really sleep past 8 o'clock. My mind, I may be tired. I may want to lay there. I can't. My mind turns on, and I got to get up at that point. And so just trying to get better sleep, I've noticed a difference. And I know, so again, testosterone, how important is just getting a good night's rest?
Yeah, that's when you're high. Well, number one, the first 45 minutes is when your growth hormone, your biggest growth hormone dump comes in your first hour of sleep. So you want to make sure that you get to sleep nice and soundly. And then your testosterone peaks usually about 6 to 7 a.m. in the morning, right? But if you're running, what did I talk about? If you're stressed, right? Like if you didn't get in a good deep sleep, or you're only running on 3 to 4 hours of sleep, your body's going to have to release extra cortisol to boost up your blood sugar and to take on the day. And so that's going to nuke your testosterone.
Right.
So, I mean, what's so crazy, as far as society goes in our patterns, like all animals, like, dogs, they just sleep when they're tired, right? Or any animal, like, oh, this animal eats, it just sleeps. And we're the only things like, I can sleep between these hours. Right. And that's, whether it's alarm clock and, that brings up the blue light thing. You've heard about that. Right. So the sun at midday emits more of a blue light. Towards the end of the day, it emits more of an orangish red light, and that affects your melatonin secretion. So when you're sitting in bed at 10 o'clock at night and you have this blue light on, that's going to suppress your melatonin, which is going to suppress how deep of a sleep that you can get into, or even fall asleep in general. So blue lights before bed are a real no-no.
What about alcohol? How does alcohol affect testosterone?
Yeah, alcohol really messes with your blood sugar, kind of the same thing. So on the back end, what does alcohol do? Increases your cortisol. And alcohol is also a toxin. So your body has to, for lack of a better term, it's got to send a lot of its resources to your liver to help detoxify. So, for instance, NAC, we talked a little bit about that, creates glutathione. Glutathione is one of your body's main antioxidant that's important for brain function. It's important for everything. And you got to think about it like you have a bank of antioxidants. And anytime you do something stressful, you're going to take that bank and you're going to deplete it. And that's going to go, and it's going to, right? Like, I mean, you probably did this in college, dude. I used to binge drink on the weekends. And then I'd go to the gym on Monday and I wouldn't feel good till about Thursday. And then I binge drink again. And then when I started bodybuilding and I stopped drinking on the weekend, I was like, dang, my workouts are so much better.
Right.
It's because I had all that antioxidant capacity to help repair and rebuild my body. And you're not using it on dumb stuff, right? I really try and use this metaphor of like terrain modification, your body kind of like being a forest, and you have water and you have plants and all this stuff. And that's what you are. You're basically an entire ecosystem. And you got to think about how you're using your resources, right? Like if you're in another metaphor that uses like a house, right? Like you have so much lumber. Do you need to use that lumber for energy, or can you use it to build a bigger house? And if you're in this fight or flight stage, you're going to use, like it's the winter time, you're conserving energy. You don't want to go and do all these things. And that's stressful. And that's tearing down the house. You're bringing things off the house. And that's what happens when you're stressed and you'll lose muscle mass.
So
because your body's Why hold on to this muscle? We don't need it. We need to burn energy and live right now.
So one of the things, and again, I've been advocating this, and we've mentioned this in previous conversations, is the effects of lifting weight. So building muscle, producing more proteins, lifting heavier weights that shock the system, you build bone density. Talk then about one of the, again, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but isn't lifting weights and the sleep, just live a more practical life? That's one of the best ways to begin boosting your testosterone, true or false, and talk about lifting weights and, again, that whole process on the endocrine system.
Yeah, and what's funny is even on the sugar, all these things, it's really about balance. At the end of the day, it's not one where, like, isn't, like, in my opinion, not all sugar is bad. Like, if you're fasted, like, in my opinion, after a workout, I'll reward myself with some cookies or something.
Dr. Mo, we got a we're having a technical issue with your microphone. It happened last time, so it must be with my Zoom software. I'm gonna have to fix that. So
is that better?
No. It's not you. It's something to do with my Zoom settings. I'm gonna have to change it. So I'm gonna end our call, and I'm gonna call you right back. So I'll send you the link on email. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye. Dang it. So now at least we know that the microphone issue has to do with Zoom. Dang it. I'm going to have to work on that. Well, now I know what I'll be doing tonight. Okay, bear with me, guys. 1 second here. Sending this to Dr. Mo. Okay. Gosh, dang it. Okay. Dang it. Well, I'm going to have to figure this microphone stuff out. We cannot have that keep happening. What is going on? I'll figure it out. Dang it. Okay. So he should be hopping in here any second, and we will get back to where we were. Sorry about the microphone issue. It has to do with this black hole channel 16, I'm sure. Come on, Mo. Here he is. Okay, we're back. Okay, we're back. Dude, I was telling you beforehand about that black hole channel 16 channel.
Yeah.
That's apparently what's doing this. I'm going to have to figure out how to get this thing working correctly.
Did it happen halfway through? I mean,
no, it happens about an hour into any conversation I have with somebody.
Jesus, you guys stop talking so much,
as soon as I do, I don't know. It's like about an hour in, all of a sudden they get tons of static and their microphone sounds off. It has to do something with these settings. I don't get it. But anyways, okay, back to lifting weights and the endocrine system and testosterone. That's where we were before we were rudely interrupted by poor technology.
Powers that be. So we're streaming.
Let's see here.
I can stop picking my nose.
There we go. Okay, go ahead.
Check.
Yes,
check.
we should sound. Yep, sounds good. Okay.
All right.
Oh, stupid freaking Zoom.
Use Zoomers in your technology.
I know it. It's always a headache.
We're millennials.
Okay.
Is a Zoomer a millennial? Is that the same thing?
What?
Is a Zoomer a millennial, or Zoomer is everyone not a boomer?
Technically, I think the break is if you were born after 98.
Oh.
1998.
Getting old.
Okay. All right. So go ahead with the with lifting weights again and its effect on the endocrine system.
Yeah, I just was kind of using that metaphor of like a house, right? And then I was saying, hey, you do need a balance, right? I don't think it's that bad of an idea to have a little bit of carb. And this is, I know you're all in on the kind of the carnivore keto, and there's a time and place. I did some keto in college.
I don't do keto. I eat quite a bit of carbs, like especially right after I work out in that 30-minute window. I often always have carbs. My last meal of the day tends to not have any carbs. And then I do the intermittent fasting. So I have at least 12 hours where I don't eat anything. And that's the biggest one that I try to sell people on is the intermittent fasting, because you will feel that within a week as soon as you get
Yeah.
on that program.
Just don't eat. It's literally like, it's that simple. But it's a balance, right? And like if you don't eat for a week, I honestly think that's probably not good for you, right? There's a like because then how do you maintain your blood sugar is going to be extra amount of cortisol, right? So again, there's this balance that we all have to find, whether it's protein intake, carbohydrate intake. So like you're saying, post workout, you have glucose. It's stored in your body as glycogen in your muscles and in your liver. And your muscles are selfish. Your muscles will not give up glycogen to the rest of the body, but that's your liver's job is kind of your gas tank. And that's what fuels your workout. So you do need, and like, again, you can do it fasted, but the process by which your body creates energy is a lot harder on it, which is good for someone trying to burn fat. Someone like you and I who is already, or we're lean and we want to optimize and we want to work out, I'm all about eating carbs. Other people will say different things.
Right. Agreed.
But you got to have protein, right? And protein's kind of the wood, right? All of what your body's like. Carbohydrates are short-term energy, fat, long-term energy, also used in the phospholipid bilayers and cells. There's other uses for it. And then protein's mostly for building blocks, right? Your skin is made of collagen. Your muscles are made of like all those collagens, those are amino acids. So if you don't have enough amino acids, you can't build, right? And that's one of the big misconceptions and one of the bad things about being on a low protein diet is if you switch that ratio and you have higher amounts of carbs, then all of the carbs will be used for energy. And then what little proteins are left over can be used to build. Now, if you're kind of here, right, you have 50 carbs, 50 protein, your body will use the carbs first, and then it converts the proteins into energy. That's why in my opinion, you're almost always better off over consuming protein. But you need that. And one of the biggest messenger cells, like amino acids can also be messengers. Leucine is a branch chain amino acid, and that's what tells the body I have proteins. It's kind of the one branch chain or the one amino acids where your body eats them. It's like, oh, this only comes when I get significant amount of proteins. So that's why often those supplements, whey protein has high amounts of branch chain amino acids. That's why people would argue that whey protein is superior to rice protein or pea protein is due to the amino acid profile of that. But again, back to your question, that puts that body in an anabolic state. It needs the resources to be able to build, though. So if you're not feeding your body the right things, exercise can be very, detrimental. There are people who overtrain and don't eat really well. And I've seen that actually, and this is why I bring this up, is you're exactly right. The optimal amount of exercise will boost testosterone, especially the things that you're doing, the compound lifts. Like a bicep curl, think about it. If you do a bicep curl, maybe your bicep will grow. But when you're squatting, your whole body, your abs, your glutes, if you're doing it right, are being activated. All those muscle fibers all over your body. And your body says, wow, that was very difficult. If we go through that again, we need to be able to deal with that stress. So your body will increase its testosterone. That's why squats, deadlifts, dumbbells, all those heavy, high intensity interval training, sprints are actually really good at it. Whereas the cardio is better for, I wouldn't even argue, even for burning calories, you're better off doing high intensity. But cardio is just, it can be easier on the body depending on how you look at it.
Right.
But with testosterone, Wolf's Law, anything that you work on is going to get stronger. Your bones are going to get stronger, your muscles are going to get better. And all that leads to higher amounts of testosterone. So, but like I said, I do like to pre-warn it. I've had a lot of bodybuilders come to me, especially pre-competition natural guys, and their testosterone is just in the tank because they're they're doing 2 hours of cardio. They're working out 7 days a week. And what are they doing? They're getting that cortisol, too much cortisol.
So what do you think about superfoods? Superfoods. That's a lot of talk in the sort of natural circles in regard boosting testosterone. Because I wanted you to hit on superfoods, and then I want to give you an opportunity to give, again, anybody listening, step-by-step instructions on natural things that they could incorporate in their lives. But before that, I know people are going to be interested in superfoods, beets, this different stuff. What's your thoughts?
I think, again, it all comes back to a balance, right? I personally, I'm a little bit weirder. I'm not Paul Saladino. Many of you guys, he's kind of like the carnivore guy where he's like, he has some good points. Like that a lot of the like sulforaphanes and some of the components that are in broccoli and Brussels sprouts, they increase glutathione, but they increase it by actually damaging us. Like our body doesn't really have a natural mechanism for holding on to turmeric. That's why everyone always tells you to take pepper, because pepper blocks the enzyme that breaks it down and gets rid of it. So that's how but there's plenty of research showing that turmeric, its active constituent curcumin, is very anti-inflammatory. So this is kind of like where it's biohacking. This is where we're getting to this realm of with testosterone, turmeric. And what's interesting is that a lot of these Indian cultures, they have turmeric and they have it in something very fatty, and because it binds to an oil and it's absorbed better, and then something with pepper. So it's weird how they found those combinations, and it does seem to be overall healthy. So like turmeric, I would say, yeah, kind of a superfood. But individualized, I think everyone's a little bit different. Everyone reacts differently to different foods. Some people I honestly think might be better off on a more pescatarian diet versus more of a carnivore diet. Everyone's different. And we have a lot of it comes down to, we're finding out the gut microbiome and what we can and cannot eat. And some people, I think that some people can drink raw milk and not have any problems. I personally cannot drink raw milk, and I've tried it multiple times. Raw eggs, I cannot do it. Messes with my gut, gives me terrible side effects. And some people can do it and feel great. And I've seen this in a lot of different people who try to adhere to a certain, this is the superfood. I personally do not feel good with fish oils. Everyone, omega-3 fatty acids. And I wager to say that I think in the future, we'll find out that there may be some negatives with fish oil. I'm not saying that it's for all people. I personally, I don't feel great on fish oil. And maybe that has to do with where you get it from and the ratio of the different type of omega-3s in there. But yeah, like moringa, and go down the list of all these, special herbs and stuff. And some of them are great. But it also, I think it depends on the dosing of them. But yeah, you specifically said beetroot. That helps increase nitric oxide because there's nitrates in it. So that helps with vasodilation. It helps with blood flow. What's blood flow do? Brings nutrients to the body pretty much everywhere. So yeah, beetroots, I'm all for it, man.
So now for anybody listening, because again, for those who weren't here at the beginning, we have a presentation that again Dr. Mo uses for some of his clients to talk about testosterone that we're gonna walk through here. But could you talk to, again, anybody's listening, they're just like, Dr. Mo, okay, it's hard for me to process everything that you're saying. Just tell me, what can I start doing tomorrow? What are like the top 5 things I can start doing to start helping boost my testosterone? I don't feel real motivated in life. I don't have a whole lot of muscle on my frame. I need to build new behavioral patterns, basically, that all the behavioral patterns I have put me in a place where I'm in my mid-20s, and I do have low T. I don't have a big drive, both sexually and motivational towards my career, my purpose, or anything like that. What can I do? Give that person step-by-step instructions.
Yeah, I mean, step one, I think routine, right? If you're going to be, you got to be disciplined if you're going to do any of these things. Like I could say just go to the gym, but I know you're not going to do it unless you get it in a routine. And I think that all starts with, getting a good night's sleep. I personally start my morning, every morning, with prayer, and that really enroots me into my day. And I do prayer. I have a little devotional, read a couple verses, and then I have basically a morning template in my Evernote where I go through it every day and I say, this is what I'm going to do today. And setting a schedule, because circadian rhythm is also very important with testosterone. I talked about not sleeping well during the night, messes with your testosterone. So definitely we need to get those things lined up. So first thing, get a good night's sleep. 2, wake up at the same time every day, right? If you want to get a good night's sleep, you got to get rid of your blue lights, get rid of those screens, get off your screens probably an hour before bed. I pray before bed too. I'd recommend that, whether it's, again, whatever way you want to go about doing it.
Yeah, I just did a stream, so I don't mean to cut you off, but pray. One of the things that I've noticed in some of the conversations I've had with people interested, they're in the online Christian community, but when I ask them, do you pray every day? Do you pray every night before you go to bed? Well, no. That has to be number one. You have to start praying. So if you're listening and you're not praying, get on your knees before you go to bed and say a prayer every night.
Just an Our Father. It doesn't even doesn't have to be difficult.
Right.
And not only that, but before every meal, right? What did I say? What is the number one killer of testosterone? Stress. What is the number one way to defeat stress? It's faith, belief in God, prayer. Always, right? That's our number one weapon the Lord has given us. So set a schedule, pray, and then definitely diet wise, right? Get rid of the crap. And that's fine if you need to do like 1 day a week of, I'm okay with those refeed days, but definitely increase the protein, decrease the simple carbohydrates. That's the sugars, right? Most of you know that. Breads, get rid of the breads, get rid of the candies, get rid of all that junk.
Yep. Well, and that stuff too, as soon as you eat the candies, you're going to want more of it. You just cut it out of
that cycle.
Yes.
Get it? And again, this is from an evolutionary perspective. We're not used to eating sugar all the time. So when you eat it, your body's like, oh, let's eat all of this now. And then what do? You pretty much turn it straight into fat. People think you get fat by eating fat. You actually get fat by eating high amounts of carbohydrates. That increases fatty acid creation. So all your fat is created by massive amount of glucose is getting linked together, and you create a fatty acid. It's not actually from eating fat. It's harder to. It works that way as well, but I would venture to say most people's fat molecules came from carbs.
So the first one is set a routine, get it, which is again the endocrine cycle. It needs to have a routine to know when to get releasing, the different hormones. So one, get a routine and pray, and the prayer is going to help decrease your overall stress level. Number 2 is quit eating junk food. If you're a man, stop eating so much sugar. You're not a child anymore. Stop eating so much sugar and increase your protein. And
that's an easy, that will leave you fuller too.
Yes. Right? It lowers your appetite. You're not as, so increase your protein. And then, again, I know a lot of people who had a lot of success with more carnivore style diets. I don't, because I want to build muscle still. So I tend to eat carbs within that 30-minute grace period after a workout where you got to throw something into that gut. So I tend to eat carbs with meat and all this different stuff right then. So right now, we have routine and diet. What's the next thing that they can do?
Yeah, working out would be number 3. Which is funny. And what's so funny is when you think about testosterone, it's literally just like, it's all the things you know, right? Like things you grew up in health class knowing, like, oh, I should get this many hours of sleep. I should eat this kind of food, and I should exercise. If you can do that, I think you're probably 90% of the way there.
Right.
From there, we can start filling in with supplements. But again, when you're working out, I would say for most people, 5 days a week at 45 minutes is probably plenty, especially if you're doing some form of compound lifts, right?
Yes.
Like if you do or even 4 days, right? Let's say you do a push pull Monday, legs Tuesday, Wednesday day off, push pull Thursday, Friday day off.
Yeah.
And then take the weekend off. That to me will do wonders. You don't have to be in there for 3 hours.
Right.
So
no, and that's but regarding the workout, because you're talking about compound lifts. I know a lot of people are going to hear this, and when they think working out, it's maybe aerobics, maybe it's just body weight stuff, maybe it's maybe it is kettlebells, but I would recommend traditional weightlifting lifts, compound lifts, and then even building your chest through bench press, stuff like that. Back exercise. I recommend, when people ask me, and that's why I want to get your feedback, because they ask me, well, what type of workouts? I do this, and sometimes it's like, well, it's not that strenuous. You're not going to build a lot of muscle doing that. Do traditional style. You don't have to be a bodybuilder. The goal may not be, that's not the point. The point is to produce more testosterone, produce more proteins, and get your body feeling strong. So I tend to recommend everybody to do compound lifts. What do you recommend? Again, just traditional bodybuilding or weightlifting lifts. What would you agree with that?
I think for simplicity, I like the push pull. I like push pull. And we could do 3 days a week. Monday, horizontal push pull. Wednesday, some form of day, focus on your legs. Friday, vertical push pull. Right? Push pull, I think they follow you. A lot of people know, like, right? You do a bench press with a row, and you're just doing, I do horizontal, right? So this way. Vertical is this way. Shoulders on the same day you do like lat pull downs. I think that's, but yes, you do need to press yourself, right? Like you need to work up a sweat, and you really want to try and at least increase your strength. Maybe like it could be as little as like 10% a year. You do need to progress a little bit, but yeah, going in there with like 10-pound dumbbells and doing a set of 30, right? I mean, I think most people in your channel know if you want to increase strength, you keep your reps under 5. Hypertrophy is actually the area that I like to go for, that 8 to 12 reps, maybe
that's
15.
what I prefer too. Yeah.
I think it's the safest. You get the result. Why are we also doing it? You get the best blood flow with that.
Yes.
You really don't get a great amount of blood flow with strongman lifting 3 to 5 reps.
Right.
You do a good 12 bicep pumps. And what are we doing? We're opening up those blood vessels, and that blood vessel is feeding nutrients to our body.
Right. And again, so for those of you who aren't as versed in weightlifting, those higher reps, 8 to 12, that's what's going to build the actual size of the muscle, the actual muscle form, give shapeliness. The lower reps, that's going to help build connective tissue, that's going to help build bone density, that's going to help build overall explosive strength. But again, I'm not competing. And again, just to give you a little bit of my psychology of what I'm not trying to compete. I'm trying to build a body that I want to have, that I can maintain till I'm 60 years old. And so for me, doing the 8 to 12 reps puts a lot less pressure on my joints. So I'll have longevity in my body.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. And I also don't think it would be a bad idea if maybe, let's say that you do a 12-week hypertrophy cycle, and then the next 12 weeks you'll do maybe the hypertrophy, but have, you'll start off on bench and you'll push yourself a little bit to like a 5 rep range through it. Because like you're saying, you want the benefits of it all. You do want that. Let's increase connective tissue. I think like you're saying, hypertrophy, if I had to pick one, I would do that. And it's not a bad idea. Again, every once in a while, throw in do a 20 to 30 repper at the end of your workout.
Right.
That will get your heart pumping. That will get a good sweat going, which is also things that we want.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. I just think for so many people getting into weightlifting, they try to go straight to the powerlifting stuff, and they hurt themselves over and over and over again. Well, stop doing that.
Look at Ronnie Coleman.
You have to build up the connective tissue to do that heavy weight with those lower reps. So I agree. And that's part of. I tend to do maybe a 6-week where I'll focus on a little bit lesser reps, more weight to build that strength, and then I'll go back to some of the higher rep routines when I'm more into maybe growing the muscle, developing the muscle.
Yeah, and it makes it fun, right? And there's a reason that it's aesthetically pleasing, right? When you're in the mirror and you take your shirt off, and it's not to be prideful, but to respect the body that God gave you, to take care of it and say, hey, Lord, I'm very thankful for this thing. I'm going to make it look better and better and better. Just like we're showing up on the stream, trying to look good for the world too. It's a form of worship.
Agreed. So I know that you're short on time, so I don't want to keep you too long. Would you like to jump straight into the presentation, and we can kind of go through the slides again?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of it.
Right.
We can kind of run
again,
through it.
It never hurts to just go back over things real quickly, or people like to hear it multiple times. So we're gonna move the Zoom down here, and we're gonna bring the PowerPoint in. So I'm on slide 1 here, testosterone. What does testosterone do? What are the average levels dropping? What can I do about it? So slide number 2, if you want to take it away, again, just talk to the audience like you're talking to one of your patients.
Yeah. So to preference, after doing this hundreds of times, I end up just making a PowerPoint, because as a naturopathic doctor, I do my best to let guys know all the things that we talked about, because I have guys come in, they're like, hey, I have ED. What do I do? I'm like, well, yeah, I could just throw some Viagra and some testosterone at you and kick you out the door, which unfortunately most of our medicine does. And I'm all about empowering, kind of like what Patrick and I were just doing, talking about lifting. Like, sorry, folks, like this is your life and you got to take responsibility. You got to learn about, theology and your relationship with God. You got to learn about diet. You got to learn about finances. You got to learn about your health. Like you can't, until then you're going to be at the mercy of someone else, and that someone else probably doesn't have your best interest in mind, as we're seeing from Fauci. Right.
Not
at all. So yeah, this was just kind of a basic thing. Some of the 3 of the more random questions about where we're at. So you can go to the next slide.
Next slide is, so 25% of men have, or 25% of men over the age. Yeah, I was at the mic I was on
Oh yeah,
slide
we
2.
can go back to that.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah, we can go back to that one real
Okay.
quick. Sorry, I can't
Mike,
see your thing.
yeah.
But this was just a case study of this guy that came in, and basically this is how he presented. He was 48, all this stuff kind of going on, ED, fatigue, blood pressure, no motivation. And again, like, and there are people that are doing a lot of what we said, Patrick, and that's where it's kind of like, what do we do about it? And that's kind of what we preface with this conversation. So, and again, I think that mentally people don't get how testosterone really affects your overall sense of well-being. So,
Right.
And then, you can pop it on the next slide where,
okay. So the
it's
next
showing
one,
that
25% of men over the age of 30, that is me, have low testosterone.
And that's by the guidelines that we know now. So if you're over 30, there's about a 25% chance that you're under that 270 milligrams per deciliter. That stat goes to 33% over the age of 40.
Right. And
so
when I turned 30, we're on Mike 6 weeks later, the next slide. But when I turned 30, that was the big thing is I looked at myself in the mirror because 30 just sounds so much older than 29.
It does.
And I didn't like the shape I was in. It wasn't like I was obese or anything like that. I just was fat. I just saw some of the behavior patterns, and I just didn't like where I was going at the age of 30. And knowing, again, we have talked prior, we've been friends, just knowing like what I'm getting ready to face. And that's why from 30 to 31, I wanted to get in the best shape of my life, as I feel like I am right now. And my goal is not just to work as hard as I did for that year, but just to maintain it through the rest of my life. I got it to where I want it. Now I can just maintain it by 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I tend to only work out 4 days a week. Now I do more compound lifts, and I tend to work out for an hour and a half, doing 25 to 35 set workouts. But that's another conversation somewhere else. So just agreeing with you, when I turned 30, I got scared to death of my behavioral patterns and where I thought I might be going if I don't change things.
Well, and that's one of the things too. Like I talk to my patients who are 40, 50, and I'm like, what shape do you want to be in when you're 70? You want to try and get in shape when you're 70, or we can get in shape now? Because when you're 70, like, dude, breaking a hip at 70 can be life or death, right? You can go into surgery. You never walk again. Like,
right.
Let's get strong and let's get healthy. So,
yep. So next slide is the Mike 6 weeks later.
Yeah. And so again, obviously our audience here is a little bit different. So have a little bit of mercy on me. Like that last guy, I walked him through things and we decided to do the TRT, and we started him on testosterone, and that's what I'm saying. Like you want results, it works, like everything, and him too. He was having major relationship problems because sexually he couldn't perform. And they say that about guys, like they come home and they just go work on their cars in the garage instead of being around their partner because they're afraid to get intimate because they can't. Right. So that's going to cause all other kinds of discourse. So his relationship was better because he could sexually perform. His fatigue was better. Blood pressure was down. He was pumping out push-ups. And he went to his primary care doctor, and his primary care doctor's like, oh, testosterone is bad for the heart. And he's like, he literally's like, hey, I need to stop because my other doctor told me this. And I just said, okay, whoa. I said, let's think about this. Maybe it is bad for your heart. But before you were about to get divorced, you had high blood pressure, you were surviving on monsters, like you couldn't do any push-ups. Are those things bad for your heart? Right? I mean, that's one of the big arguments where people I really try and look at things holistically and be like, okay, maybe you have a heart attack at 60. Wouldn't you prefer to live at 60 and be able to do all these things than what? And that's a conversation I have. I try and be a teacher to my patients instead of telling them what to do. So, and as we'll go through the PowerPoints, I break down why, in my opinion, testosterone is not bad for the heart. All those things are helpful for your heart. They're going to decrease, right? Happy wife, happy life. And if you can't perform in the bedroom and your wife's upset, like, let's be honest, that's going to cause all that stress, and it's going to be a negative feedback loop.
Right. So next slide.
Yeah, just an overview of things that I would assume most of us kind of already know. What's testosterone, what's it do? Confidence, muscle mass, motivation, memory, decreases fatigue, belly fat. Afternoon, like needing that afternoon nap. I often notice that goes away with guys when they're on T. And the studies are coming. They've been out, and they show guys who have higher testosterone, decreased chance for Alzheimer's, heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, ED, all that stuff.
So we didn't really mention on the cognitive relationships to testosterone much. We're talking much about the physical body.
Oh, testosterone is super important for regulating your blood glucose, which is like what happens when your blood glucose goes up after a meal and crashes. You get tired. You can't focus. And not only that, but testosterone, keeping your blood sugar down decreases the amount of inflammation. And also they've done studies and they show that when is men's retention often best? It's in the morning. That's why they send us to school. And I'll debate that one a little bit. I tend to do good work at night. But the studies do show that most memory retention happens better in the morning.
Yeah, I agree with that.
When
I write papers or research papers, I like to write in the morning.
It's when testosterone's highest.
Next slide was, what does testosterone do?
Yeah, things we kind of already talked about. It's just kind of a graphic for people.
Okay. How do testosterone levels decrease?
All the things we said. Part of it is just, we didn't really actually get at that point, aging. Like everything in the body, we degenerate over time. The real question is just how quickly do you want to degenerate, right? Like cognitively, most people, I'm showing my age. As they age, they get fatter, they get done, like being mean. But as you age, all those things kind of go downhill. Right. And you can, and I say that with balding. I get that. I don't know if I talk about that with here. Balding you can increase how quickly you bald with the amount of inflammation and the food and everything you eat. Some guys are just predestined to bald, and you can speed that up or slow that down. It kind of goes the same thing with testosterone.
Well, I'm sure some people are battling that right now who are watching this regarding.
Oh yeah, I'm doing my best, keeping what I got. You're looking slick. Let's see then. Yeah, so naturally it's just going to go down as we age.
Right.
Heavy metal exposure, that's an area we didn't really talk much about.
We
Fluoride
didn't
in
talk
the water.
about that.
I'm the big conspiracy theorist. I think that stuff's garbage, doesn't need to be there. Fluoride has high electronegativity. It's like oxygen, high electronegativity. It does terrible things to the body in high amounts. Oxygen, you think good, but it's actually what's a pro-oxidant is something that causes damage from a basic chemical standpoint. It's missing an electron in its outer shell, and it's trying to fill it. So it's going to go around and cause damage. It's fluoride and a lot of other mercury, plenty of other studies showing heavy metal exposure decreases testosterone, and also exposure to radiation. Right. I mean, I've heard plenty of stories of that guys that work on like nuclear submarines and stuff become infertile. Let's see. Diet wise, a couple of the main, if you're low in zinc is actually an aromatase inhibitor too, which helps keep estrogen lower. But you do need zinc and magnesium are two of the big, if you're low in either of those, it can decrease your testosterone. That's usually not why your testosterone's low. But so something you could consider supplementing to see if it will help you out. I talked about cortisol, right? Already, stress. A lot of different medications will lower testosterone, almost all of them, right? And you can think about blood pressure meds. What are blood pressure meds doing? They're preventing you from getting blood throughout the body, right? Your blood pressure is high. It's kind of like a balloon with too much water. So you're pressing, and what does your drug do? Is relaxes it. Well, what's that do? It decreases how you get blood to your ears and your penis and your toes and your hands. Because you need high amounts of pressure because they have heart disease. They have arterial and atherosclerosis. So it's kind of a lose-lose in that situation. Let's see, we talked about pesticides like glyphosate and other ones. Xenoestrogens. This is also a common misconception is that it isn't that they raise your estrogen. Some of them do by messing with the estrogen receptor on the brain. But often what these xenoestrogens do is they act like estrogen. So they hit the same receptor. Meaning that if estrogen tells your body to gain fat and to be moody, it dings the same receptor. So let's see, stress. We talked about
stress, mental. We kind of hit on those. The next slide, how bad have they decreased? And that was what I really wanted you to hammer home for people because, most people just don't realize the deficit we're all in.
Yeah, and I actually made this PowerPoint like a year or two ago, and I wanted to update it because there was one study just from 1988 to 2002. It showed a 100 level decrease, but a lot of those studies have updated that it's now 100 levels lower than 2002, right? So 200 over the last 30 years.
Wow.
So the same thing with sperm counts have just absolutely plummeted.
Well, I love at the bottom there, 70% of men are now overweight. 70%. If you are out there and you're listening and you're overweight, stop. That is you. That is your responsibility, and that is your fault. That is not glorifying the kingdom either.
No. Yeah. And you get help, right? We're not going to go at a place of, there are plenty of things that you can do. Be empowered,
Right.
take control of your life. Don't be a victim.
Don't
right?
be a
And
victim.
sometimes it's harder. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I was raised, like I have a lot of type 2 diabetes in my family, and we didn't eat the best way. And, you can get through it, find resources, be empowered. Yeah. And then I linked, 40% are obese.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. 40% of men are obese. 70% of men are overweight. Oh my gosh.
And that's when we talk about these reference ranges, why it's so hard too, right? It's like, how are you? They say normal, healthy men, but like, let's go out and pick 100 dudes and take their testosterone level. It's like normal and average are not the same.
Right.
Right.
And that's why it's the new normal, because it's about the new average.
Average.
Yeah, bringing it down. So next slide is normal sick care blood levels.
Yeah. That's what I was just talking about, right? How it's 250 to 800. And I like seeing it over 700. Like, and if I'm doing therapy, I get guys that 900 mark, because that makes sense to me. And this is where we're kind of in that place of like, I think the average 65-year-old's testosterone in the 80s, a 65-year-old was at about 550, 65-year-old, right? So what should a 40-year-old be? Probably at least 100 or 200 higher than that. 50, like, and we don't have a lot of evidence, right? So technically you would think that if a 65-year-old's 550, then a 40-year-old should be at least 600 or 700. And most guys that I measure are they're in that 300 to 400 mark.
Next slide.
I did talk about free testosterone. Sex hormone binding globulin what does it do? It binds to your testosterone and it doesn't allow it to go and do its thing. That's why you want to measure your free testosterone and you want to measure sex hormone binding globulin. I measure both of them and calculate it myself. Some labs will do that for you. But also if your sex hormone binding globulin is really high and your body's just holding on to the testosterone, you can have a high total and a low free. So always make sure that your free testosterone measured.
Okay. Why are low levels bad? We kind of hit on that. Yep.
There are some studies, 900, over 900 decreased chance for Alzheimer's, over 700 diabetes, heart disease.
And that's a big one. Has there been any association with prostate? I know that's a big one for men. Prostate cancer, potentially testosterone.
Very, very, very debated area.
Okay.
My personal opinion, I believe is Abraham Morgenthau. He won the a Nobel Prize because we used to think that testosterone was directly correlated to prostate cancer. Directly, they said, "Oh, high testosterone, prostate cancer," and it doesn't seem like that's true. It's still kind of a dogma that is in the field, and they do. The thing is, testosterone has your body grow, right? So if you have a cancer and testosterone says grow, then it may be contraindicated. And specifically, your prostate is it has a lot more androgen receptors, so it's more sensitive to testosterone than other parts of the body. So most guys who are have prostate cancer, they'll go as low as nuke their testosterone, right? They'll use a testosterone inhibitor, and those guys are miserable. I've seen plenty of them. They come to me after. I put guys on testosterone after prostate cancer because they're suicidal.
Wow.
Right? Their T is so low, they can't get an erection, they can't work out, they can't do anything. They're like, dude, I'll and obviously have to sign a waiver because that's super controversial but I don't know, I'm trying to help people here. And that's what I was talking about. Most doctors won't. I have so many guys that go to other doctors and like, doctor wouldn't put me on testosterone. I have prostate cancer. And again, they're just watching their ass. And unfortunately, this guy's suicidal. And, it's like, what the heck am I going to do? Everyone just turns them away because they're trying to watch their license. So I get it.
Sad.
But,
all right. Next slide is what biomarkers to check.
Yeah, these are the basic 5 or the top 5 is an easy place to start. CBC is your blood chemistry, CMPs, liver kidney function, testosterone, sex hormone binding globulin. The other stuff are also good areas to investigate if you're really trying to get to the root of the problem, like your cholesterol, your hemoglobin A1C, DHEA, pregnenolone. Those are precursors to testosterone, IGF-1, LH, FSH. That's what tells your body to produce testosterone. High amounts of prolactin inhibit testosterone production. Thyroid function is similar to testosterone, but thyroid, you think more of like your body's thermostat.
Right.
So low thyroid will do a lot of the same things that low T will do. So it's good to rule that out. We can talk about, Lyme disease. Have you went down that rabbit hole? Like it being a bioweapon?
No.
Oh, dude, there's big. Yeah, it looks like it was man-made. It came out of Lyme, New Jersey. It was a lab leak.
Lyme disease.
Yeah, Lyme disease. Check that one out, folks.
Wow, I wasn't aware. Let me write that one down. I have to dive down that rabbit hole another time.
Yeah, no, it's
so it's not the ticks that are doing it in the summertime that are getting me while I'm camping.
Yes. Well, and that's, dude, Lyme disease, mold, and heavy metal are things I personally did not want to deal with early in my career because they're really hard. They're hard to identify. Lyme disease, the testing's all over the place. Most people think, you get bit and then you give someone doxycycline and everything's better. But a lot of people have long-term antibodies. You have immune problems, long-term immune effects to Lyme disease. It's no joke, really. And there's talks about it being lab leaked, just kind of like the recent virus. So, but no one knows.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
I'll definitely look more into that. So next slide was the lab follow-ups.
Oh, yeah. This is just how often, a lot of people ask me, how often should you be getting measured? And this is if you start therapy, like if you started doing actual testosterone, 6 weeks. If you're just like, how often should a basic person get labs done? I think once a year is good enough, right? If you're just trying to keep an eye on thing. But if with like TRT, testosterone, when I do actual injections, cypionate has a 7-day half-life, so it builds up. So 6 weeks is good, but 3 months is kind of when I'll check in on guys.
Mm-hmm. So again, today's conversation and what I'm personally more interested in is trying to boost natural testosterone levels, get those babies as high as possible, maintain a lifestyle that perpetuates those high numbers. But for some people, they may need to consult somebody regarding TRT. So what would you describe as somebody out there listening that maybe they're 45, maybe they're just not going to be able to overcome that sort of downfall post 30? Could you just speak to them just real quickly on maybe describing a person that's, you may have to meet with somebody, a professional?
Yeah, hopefully you can find a good professional that can have that conversation with you, right? Like I can say some things here. And again, none of this is medical advice. I should probably put in a disclaimer kind of at the beginning.
I'll put it in the video description.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, informational purposes only. I'm just sharing kind of what it's like to, as a patient of mine. I mean, again, that's where I'm kind of more results driven. A lot of my colleagues, especially in the naturopathic field, think that, right, we only go natural and we do natural for 2 to 3 years, and then maybe I'll consider testosterone replacement. I've seen what testosterone does to guys like that guy, Mike. And if I'd have waited 3 years for him to get those results, it could have been too far. Like he may have stopped coming to me. His relationship with his wife could have fell through. He may have lost, like there's so many things where by the time most men are coming in, it's almost already they're desperate. Right. And so that's why me as a practitioner, I have to make that call whether or not I'll recommend it or not. And that's what I'm saying. Like it's hard. It's really hard to do it's hard to lose weight if you have low T. Like, I mean, just imagine if you had 50 pounds on now compared to when you were 22. I can remember being 20. Dude, you can go to the gym. I play basketball for 3 hours, work out for 2 hours. Like I can lose weight, no problem. And I was fortunate enough that I got in on that window, right? I haven't been overweight since I was probably 22, 23. And now that I'm 30, like you're saying, I've maintained a physique that's easy. Like if I were to gain 50 pounds right now, I think it'd be a lot harder than if I was 20. And that's what I'm saying. Like maybe testosterone is a booster for you. Then you start sleeping better. Then you put on muscle easier. And it could be, does that make sense? It's kind of like your testosterone is your engine size. Yeah. If you're running with a 4-banger, it's gonna be a heck of a lot harder to get there. Right. Unless you got a V8. Yeah.
So, Royal. Again, I'm not totally sure how to pronounce this word. He said just started TRT cypionate was at 80 ng over DL.
80
nanogram per deciliter. 80.
Yeah, he was doing 80 milligrams twice a week.
No, I was at 80.
Oh, yeah. That sucks. That's what I'm saying. Like a guy like that, we were saying 250. He was at 80.
80.
Right? He's like older than that. I appreciate the transparency and sharing. And that's a case where I'm like, dude, he could have had some testicular damage. He could have been heavy metal exposure. Could have been all kinds of things. It's like, we can try and boost you naturally, but it would be tough. And that's where I would prefer, hey, get on TRT for a little bit, ride it for 3 to 6 months, and then we can try and peel you off.
Right.
But it depends on where you are. If you walk in my office and you're at 500 or 600, I'm like, hey, let's try some natural stuff first. But yeah, if you're at like a total T of under 250, like he could have major actual physiological problems, right? Because there's a couple, like you can have something wrong with your brain, that your signal from your brain for your testes isn't working. And then you can have something wrong with your testes, that your testes don't allow you to produce it. And then you can have like what I would call a plethora of lifestyle and environmental things that are suppressing both of those.
Mm-hmm.
So,
jeez. Well, I appreciate Royal for sharing that. Thank you. So flipped over to the next slide, how to increase your levels naturally. Again, we kind of went over most of this stuff.
Yeah. Ashwagandha is an herb that actually has some pretty good research on it. I know a lot of people, there's stuff like the bee pollen thing. I've not seen anyone do pre and post level testing and increase it with the bee pollen. I'm super skeptical of that supplement too, because it seems like you get it from super sketch places.
Mm-hmm.
But then I usually do my pitch here where I'm like, people are like, oh, how do I increase my testosterone naturally? I'm like, well, move out of the city, go plant a garden, get a family, live a stress-free life. You know, it's like, we just live in such a different time, especially than not only our fathers and grandfathers, right? But they just kind of had that different lifestyle of not only that like fraternity, like you and I are friends and we have to connect via Zoom.
Right.
Right. So there's a level of like that changes. And like, I'm in my day to day, I'm working every day where, 50 to 100 years ago, it seems like there was a lot more camaraderie in the workplace. And now it's more of like everyone's on their computer all day.
Right.
And you get in trouble if you go to the water fountain and talk to someone.
Right. No, it's true. The ashwagandha, how do you pronounce it?
Ashwagandha.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an herb. You do have to be careful.
Have you write me a full script for that.
Yeah. You can try out that one. And this is what I'm saying. Like the herbs that work, you always have to watch out. 90% of people feel good on that one. I personally get tired.
Oh, really?
Everyone's different. Yeah. Most people feel good on it. It's
I got to check it out.
Yeah. And it's a nootropic. It has minor SSRI properties naturally. And it has some studies where it's actually increased testosterone.
Sweet. And then you mentioned zinc and selenium.
Yeah, if you're deficient in those,
right.
Your testosterone.
What about fasting?
Fasting can help because that's going to help with like your glucose regulation. But again, that's where I'm saying if you fast too much,
right? Depends.
So
much depends on the person, and really getting them. Yeah. So it is so difficult to just, one fits all. It's really not how it works with this stuff. General trends. So then like the next slide, how to increase your levels, lifestyle.
Yeah. All the things we talked about, sugar, protein, supplements.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then hitting those major muscle groups, the chest, back, and legs. Because he's talking about the push-pull. I'm all about it. But I just do pull one day, push another day, legs another day. And I'll throw in some shoulders, some arm workouts within there. But for the last year, getting the physique that I've built is all through push-pull leg routines.
Perfect. And it's a little easier to stay balanced. I did hypertrophy, isolated body parts, and I got a little unbalanced. So I switch it up actually now. I usually do 12 weeks to be 5 days a week of isolations, and then I'll do 8 to 12 weeks of push-pulls.
Agree. Yeah, I like that. So next slide. How do we make testosterone? You don't have to get too much into this one. It's a little bit
biochemistry.
Yeah, a little bit more biochemistry than maybe the kids took.
All you need to know is cholesterol is the backbone. And that's why statins. Why do you think so many guys that get on statins? And this is debatable whether or not it helps or hurts with ED. And then also, but statins is pretty correlated to Alzheimer's and dementia.
Mm-hmm.
pregnenolone is also an important hormone for the brain, and all these other hormones. Like, again, a reason I shared this is to show you that cholesterol turns into progesterone, pregnenolone, estradiol, testosterone, like all cortisol. All these things go together.
Right. Next slide is how do we make testosterone? Again, just a quick little graph.
Yeah, just your brain releases your brain is basically counting. Oh, I have 100 testosterone. I want 200. It sends an LH signal down to the testes, pops it in the blood, comes back up.
I see.
It's a feedback loop.
Next slide, methods of treatment. Again, we don't have to go too much into this. Kind of, again, you need to consult a professional. So,
yep.
And so the next one, men over 35 or under 35.
Yeah, that's where if guys want to do pharmaceutical interventions, I usually start with something like Clomid, or instead of going straight to testosterone cypionate. Mm-hmm. These Clomid blocks the estrogen receptor on the brain, and that basically tells your body to release what's called gonadotropin releasing hormone, which increases both testosterone and estrogen. Mm-hmm. So it helps your body produce more. It's really, women take it for fertility. And then LH, HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, which is actually what women urinate when they're pregnant. That is also a LH agonist. So when you take that, it dings your testes to produce more testosterone. So these are more natural way. These help your body produce more instead of actually giving it.
Right. Next slide. Men over 45, you recommend TRT?
Usually, and that has to do with depends on the patient, because with Clomid and ACG, you need high functioning Leydig cells in your testes, right? If your testes are all burnt out and they're all washed up from years and years of being overly exposed to chemicals and stuff and just aging, it's just going to be harder for your body to produce an optimal amount of testosterone.
Right.
But again, very individualized.
Next one, other pharmaceuticals to consider.
Yeah, those are anastrozole is an estrogen blocker, finasteride is a DHT blocker.
And somebody wanted you again. I didn't catch it all, but they're asking Dr. Mo, can you talk about 5-alpha reductase inhibitors for BPH?
Yeah, that's where I kind of talked about earlier that your prostate is super sensitive to your androgen, and DHT is a downstream of testosterone. And the theory is that DHT is what causes a lot of the negative side effects like balding and increase in prostate size. So finasteride, people take that and it helps with the decreasing of the DHT. So therefore you get less activity on the DHT receptors for your prostate and for balding. There is something called post-finasteride syndrome, which happens because DHT is also important. It is good for your sex drive. It's good for muscle building. It does a lot of good things. A lot of steroids, anabolic steroids, are actually DHT derivatives because they're so anabolic, meaning they help build muscle. Mm-hmm. But yeah, finasteride, time and place for its use.
Right. Next slide is shrinkage.
That's from using TRT. One thing is when you start taking testosterone, it shuts off that whole loop. And the LH is what tells your testes to not only produce testosterone, but also to be fertile. So if we give you testosterone, your testes shrink and you become infertile.
Wow.
Yeah. But you'll drop about 95% of your sperm count. You'll still produce it very, very minimally.
Wow.
So something to consider.
Yeah.
Every guy that's gotten on TRT that has been fertile and gotten off TRT, their levels go back to normal.
Okay.
I've not seen it make some guy infertile, but still
something to be aware of.
Something to be aware of for sure.
Infertility.
Yeah, actually, that's what I said here. Sperm counts will drop, but you can do HCG simultaneously to maintain your fertility.
Okay. And then estrogen.
Yeah, we do need it. It does get demonized a lot, but estrogen's good for the brain and bones. And a lot of places will put guys, when they start testosterone, right on an aromatase inhibitor, and it blows their estrogen super low, which is also not good. Then they don't have very good bone health.
Can you speak to cold and hot showers real quick? That seems like a question that popped up.
Yeah, I mean, so overall, what are we doing? It's a naturopathic medicine. We call that hydrotherapy. When you work out or when you expose heat to an area, it vasodilates, right? So it opens up the blood vessels, right? And then you put cold, and then it shrinks the blood vessels. And when you have, like, for instance, when you do a bicep curl, the blood will go there and it will pool because it's trying to give a lot of nutrients. But when all those nutrients come and the blood goes in and you get, you're tearing down muscle fibers, you're repairing their stem cells and growth factors, there's often a lot of debris that sits there. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a construction site when you're there and you're building up the muscle, but there's junk everywhere. So that's when you ice, right? And it takes away and it shrinks the blood vessels, and then it brings all that gunk in your blood vessels, and then you take it away. And that's why you do contrast hydrotherapy, hot and cold, because it's like it's bringing in new blood. The blood does all of its thing, and then you kind of want to shoot it away super quick. So you have vasodilation, vasoconstriction. And there's some people, I actually had a guy named Lucas Owen on my podcast. He's a guy from Australia. He has a big biohacking channel. And he's really big on icing the testes. And it's kind of the same thing that there are studies showing the temperature of your testes. Like there's a reason that they go up and down and they're closer or further away to the body. The testes your penis and testes are one of the only organs that are actually somewhat outside of the body. And that has to do with the creation of sperm. So, for instance, saunas have been shown to increase infertility because it's too hot, right? And then you get that vasodilation, and then your ball sack your scrotum will sag, and then that will decrease your fertility. So that's why icing it has been shown to do the opposite.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there are studies showing icing the testes can increase testosterone. That's one we didn't talk about.
A new Wim Hof method.
Yeah.
Next slide is on prostate. Again, we kind of already hit on this. So we can skip that one. And then the last slide, testosterone and prostate cancer, an evidence-based review of pathogenesis and oncological risk.
Yeah, the rest of these are just kind of studies just talking about prostate cancer, heart disease, overall causes of death. And if if you want, people can pause and they can kind of look at some of the studies that I've linked. I have way more. These were just some of the bigger ones.
Testosterone therapy, what we have learned from trials.
Yeah.
I'll just flipping through here. The benefits and risk of testosterone replacement therapy, a review. Testosterone in the heart.
Yeah, one thing, it increases nitric oxide, which increases blood flow. If you're on actual TRT, it actually increases something called EPO, erythropoietin. That's what Lance Armstrong took when he was doping. It increases the amount of red blood cells that you have, which allows you to carry more oxygen. The only problem is that it can increase clotting and it makes your blood thicker. So you have to watch that.
That's why they had the blood thinner, yeah. Those bikers.
Yeah, they heard that they had to wake him up in the middle of the night.
Just so so he would go bike.
Yeah.
Just to get his heart pumping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Next slide, testosterone and cardiovascular health.
Yeah, and that study was showing that the guys with testosterone deficiency were actually more likely to have cardiovascular events.
Wow. Endogenous testosterone and mortality due to all causes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer in men.
Yep. That was just basically saying higher your testosterone, the more likely you live longer.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and then these were screenshots of that.
Yeah, here's a table from that study. And that is the end of the PowerPoint. Well, Dr. Mo, thank you so much, brother. I know that you got to get off here because you have things that you have to do. But I want to greatly tell you how appreciative I am of you coming on here and sharing your wisdom with us. It's greatly appreciated, and I'm sure many of the men watching right now are appreciative of the knowledge that you brought and dropped on us.
Now, yeah, I always enjoy coming over here, and I think we're very much on a similar mission here to help all the young men out there hopefully get on track. As I've been off track plenty of times in my life, so I can at least share some of my mistakes. Not saying I know a whole lot, but what little bit that I've been blessed enough to be gifted with, I'm happy to share with everyone. So super glad to see your channel continuing to grow and your influence continuing to, by the grace of God, continue to do more and more good things.
Well, thank you, brother. I greatly appreciate it. And it is by the grace of God. Very thankful, and just hope that I continue to have the opportunity to continue to make content and do what I like to do. And again, shout out to you. It sounds like the clinic is doing well. I mean, my gosh, you're a young, successful, strapping lad outside the LA or Southern California, LA area. So
God is bringing me many, many blessings. To whom much is given, much is expected. I only ask that hopefully I can be a channel of Him and continue to do good things out here, because there's plenty of work that needs to be done. So, and I'm always open. I enjoy these conversations. It always enlightens me to areas that I can learn more. I want to continue to make more content too. So if there's, areas that you have recommendations, or any of your guys listening,
go over to Dr. Moe's channel and subscribe. Let me pull the link up real quick.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of stuff on peptides, but I've actually been leaning more. There's a lot of questions in this area. We really didn't touch a whole lot like on the anabolic steroids or any of the SARMs, right? Those are large conversations.
Well, that's what maybe we'll save that for another conversation. We'll come back and we'll talk about PEDs. That'd be a good combo to have. Because that's one of the things that young men keep hitting me up about, because they see my workout stuff. And they ask me, oh, well, what PEDs are you on? And I tell them, dude, I'm not taking anything. I take amino acids. I'm really strict on my diet. I'm super consistent, right? I don't miss my workouts. I don't miss my meals.
Well, dude, you've been realistically, you've been doing this for 15 years, right? At least. And that's one thing people don't get. Like, you grew up an athlete. Right. So I'm sorry to break it to you guys, but if you're a couch potato for the first 30 years, it's going to take you a good 5 years to get a decent to get into the shape that you want. I don't know about when I was 17 or 18, I remember being insecure about being overweight, and it took me to about 22 to get as lean as I want. And I was like 18 to 22, right? And I was doing everything right at that age. So it's a process, you know?
And that's what scares me, is these young guys will hit me up, and they're not overweight. They're decent frames, young 20s, and they're already talking about taking SERMs. They're already talking about taking Tren. They're already talking about this stuff. And I tell them, dude, don't do
SARMs,
it. Don't do it.
I'm telling you, I can make an argument for testosterone depending on where a guy is at, or even ACG or Clomid, Enclomiphene. They're the devil's in the detail for that. But I do not like the SARMs. I've seen guys coming in on LGD 4030, MK 2886. Those are all messing with the receptor, right? Like, testosterone itself can shut off your feedback, but I've seen you're doing anabolics. There might be some irreversible damage, but the SARMs, I actually used them in a handful of patients because they really wanted me to. And it killed their levels. It's okay why they're on it, but their levels plummet afterwards. Lots of side effects. A lot of them are getting them from research-only websites.
Right.
The juice is not worth the squeeze.
No, it's not. That's why I try to tell these guys, are you competing? No. Well, then why the hell are you taking anything that's going to wreck your endocrine system? Just work your ass off.
And that's messing with the actual receptor. Like you're talking, right? HPA axis. This is actually going into the receptor and down and up regulating and messing with it. We don't understand long term. Like with the testosterone that I use what's called bioidentical, meaning it is the body. It hits the receptor. It's the same. If there were a key, it looks exactly the same.
Brother,
when you get it.
It looks like we're having the microphone issue again, so we'll just hop off here for now. Thank you so much, man. Again, just so we don't have to hop into another Zoom call. Thank you, everyone, for dropping in. Again, thank you, Dr. Moe, for dropping your knowledge, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless everyone, and until next time. Actually, I'll see you tomorrow night. I think your mate Tom is going to be on tomorrow night, Thursday night or Friday. So